Welcome back to Seat Time, and today we are going to be talking about chains. The chain that is on the Sherco right now is this exact same chain, so this RK chain, this 520 O-ring chain. We actually put this on in February. It looks like it has about 40 hours on it and around about 700 miles. But the thing is though that is very low, this chain has been through a lot because one, I've been racing all year. Racing miles are definitely, or racing hours and miles are definitely different than just riding miles and hours. And also in the middle of all of this is the Arkansas National Enduro, which was a complete MUDFEST. I do have a race recap. If you have not seen that video, go watch it. It's like the Blackwater 100 came back and bit us in the ass. It was a great time. I hope it doesn't ever happen again though. Why do I know that it is now time to replace the chain on this bike, even though it only has 40 hours and about 700 miles, which does average around 17 miles an hour. Kind of fun to, play with that, if you will. There's a couple different things to look for when you're trying to figure out if your chain is worn out. You're gonna see the normal thing that is talked about on the internet where someone's gonna grab the chain at the back of the sprocket and pull. And if you can see about half of a tooth, it's probably time to replace it. The problem with that is no one really talks about is that when it's sitting on the stand? Is that when it's sitting on the kickstand? There's different ways to figure that kind of stuff out. So if you go by what the manufacturer says, you can see a couple different ways to look at the chain. They're going to tell you to measure between X amount of pins per manufacturer. That's kind of hard to do because they also want it extremely tight to do that. One of the ways that I saw from different manufacturers is to look at the pins. And if the pins are spun, that is a good indication that not only is the chain wearing so much that the pins are starting to move a little bit there in the link, but it's actually starting to spin. And so when that is happening, that means that at some point in time, that pin could actually come out, the chain could break, and you want to replace that bad boy. Other ways though is a little bit of a side to side movement. So you can grab the chain and kind of push on it, and you shouldn't really get any kind of flex because again, the chain does not stretch. What happens is the pin in the link creates a little bit of metal wear, and that area in there allows chain stretch to happen, right? So there's just millimeters upon millimeters, which by the end is a little bit of stretch. So if you get play side to side, it's a good time to check some of the other indicators to see if you have a worn chain. There's also manufacturers that talk about how much plate wear you see. So you're gonna measure the plate of a new chain and then measure the plate of a worn chain, and if it goes down X amount of millimeters, then you're gonna wanna replace it in that degree. If you're missing O-rings and you have an O-ring chain, that's a good indicator that maybe you should be looking at the chain just because it's been through the elements. Obviously, mud and sand are the two that are going to be the worst on a chain because they're just going to get in there and they're going to just wear away at that pin link combination where they move, where they kink, where they do all of the great torquey things that we love to do on our dirt bikes. So those are some indicators of when to replace your chain. If you notice any of those, go ahead and get a new chain. But this is the chain that we're going to put on today, and this is the grinder that we are going to use to grind away some links and put this bad boy on the chain. If you have questions about what you see, go ahead and ask them in the comments. If you have other indicators that you use for ways that you notice that your chain needs to be replaced, also put those in the comments below. We want to make sure that other people have different ways and thoughts, and we can build ourselves a little bit of experience from everybody that watches videos here at Seat Time. So I'm gonna plug this grinder in. We're gonna zip, zap, zoop some things out of this, then we're gonna get this bad boy on the bike. If you see anything that I did wrong, definitely make fun of me in the comments. Hopefully you'll learn something, but nothing else. Let's have a little bit of fun doing this. Yes, I use vice grips to get the master link off. I also use vice grips to rotate the screwdriver. So I'll kind of bang it down a little bit. I'll rotate it with the vice grips, bang it down just a little bit more, rotate it a little bit, and that's how I get this plate off. Obviously, if you've got better ways to do this or less aggressive, let us know in the comments. I wanted to give you guys a quick look at the front sprocket. You can see it's nice and worn and the kind of shark fins are starting to come into play. Now as we take it off, we've got to make sure that we get this locking washer off of there before we remove that nice big old nut that's holding it on there. Now the counter shaft seal wasn't leaking, so there's no point in changing it when it's not leaking, but I did want to give this a clean just because it's hard to get back there during the normal cleanings after these races. Great look at new on the left, old on the right, and the wear that happens that sometimes we just don't notice. Because I don't have the chain on, I can't use that to help tighten everything down with an impact. So we're gonna come back a little bit later with the impact and get this thing snug. This is a great opportunity to put some anti-seize on the chain adjustment bolts. I just like to do this every now and again, especially when I replace a chain, because you just never know. Again, all of these elements, all the pressure washing, all the cleaning, the years of riding, just want to make sure these bolts don't ever get stuck in the swing arm. I like to thread the chain from the top, going over the sprocket, underneath the sprocket, kind of there through the guides, and then of course through the chain guide there at the back, close to the sprocket, and then I'll try to make sure that I've got a nice spot so I can put the master link on there at the top of the sprocket. In this case, I did not get the adjusters in enough for the new chain, so making that happen right now so that we can get this new master link in. Just like installing a bib mousse, a master link takes a process that you need to figure out for yourself. There's going to be tons of rules on the internet. There's going to be tons of friends in the chat room or at the trail that are going to tell you their way is the best way to do it. In the long run, you need to figure out what makes the most sense for you. Yes, I still use the vice grips, and I get the master link installed just fine, as long as you remember to have the very end clip on the master link facing the correct direction. Majority of the time, you're going to get this right. So of course, judge me accordingly, but if you've got any tips and tricks, leave those in the comments. Let's help everybody get a little bit smarter. For those of you who are wondering what in the heck I am doing, I'm actually going to each side of the plate here on the master link to try to make sure that even though I am going through the middle, that I get both sides pressed on semi-equally. Obviously there's the channels there in the pins that are coming through the link, and that's where we need to make sure we get there so the clip can go on the master link. So to try to get that depth, I'm making sure that not only do I press in the middle, but I kind of press a little bit on the left and the right of that plate of the master link so that we can then eventually get the clip on. If you've never done this before, just like putting in the bib mousse and a tire iron can fly across the garage, same thing. These master links, or these clips on the master links, can be kind of a headache sometimes. This one went on fairly well, and sometimes even when you know what you're doing, they don't. So just pay attention, go slow, you got this. Chain tension. Yes, I'm using 3 fingers at the back of the swing arm protector as a guide for how tight the chain needs to be. It's gonna settle, it's gonna adjust in on a first few rides. That's just something you gotta play with, and you should be good to rock and roll. This is the German torque setting of Gudentite. With this impact, you're definitely gonna get yourself there. The next tool in my arsenal is a pair of channel locks, using these bad boys to fold over one of the wings here on this locking washer. It may not be called a locking washer, but to me, it locks the nut in place and it has wings, so to me, it's a winged locking washer. What do you call it? The new chain is on. It looks like the rear sprocket is probably gonna need to be replaced with the next chain. It's just, you can tell that it's starting to wear, even though it is one of the DDC steel sprockets. Love those guys. Thank you, Nate Delaney, for helping me out. He doesn't give me anything for free. He does give me a nice discount. So if you haven't checked out DDC Racing, that's Delaney Drive Components, make sure you go check those guys out and hit him up. Be like, hey, I saw it on Seat Time. You wanna give me a discount? You never know what's gonna happen unless you ask. If you guys have questions, comments, or concerns about anything you saw, make sure you use the comments. I want this to be a collaborative effort here on Seat Time. If I don't get a chance to see you guys on the trail, obviously I will see you here on the internet. Enjoy getting Seat Time, and we will see you for the next one. Peace. To cut some links away,